So let's talk about the game relative to a couple things. I want to talk about the game relative to the coaches. Do you think one coach out-coached the other, or one? And because I like to call them the brain trust. That's one thing. Then talk about the quarterbacks, a little bit, and what you think maybe should happen. And then we can even go, however you want to go beyond that. So relative to the coach, just to get it started, do you think that Andy out-coached my Niners coach?
Excellent question. I don't want to go so far as to say that Big Red out-coached the young Shanahan. I believe that the 49ers had ample opportunities to pull out the victory. But I will say that I believe the Chiefs stuck a little closer to who they are and who they have been than the Niners did. In other words, there was a little bit more iffy play calling on the Niners side. There were some situations, as far as I saw it, with game flow, time in the game, what the score happened to be at the time, when I thought that maybe they passed a little more than they should have and should have stuck with their strength, which was running the ball. And there were times when they ran the ball and maybe didn't have the kind of success that they were used to, and they immediately went to the pass instead of sticking with the run. It wasn't throughout the game. They had their moments. There was a couple of drives that were things of actual beauty as far as the Niners are concerned. I mean, great, well-balanced, well thought out. Obviously, some of those runs that Deebo Samuel had on those fly sweep type plays, they found a weakness during film study with the Chiefs that the Chiefs actually, I don't think, ever really figured out during the game. But yeah, there were a few glitches in the Niners play calling, offensively I'm talking about, that may have lent to putting them in the position that they were in.
I say yes. My Niners coach was out-coached, and it's not
I
just
was trying to be kind.
Hey, look, we football fans, man. We get down to the real nitty-gritty about it because it is what it is, and you recognize that, and then you go from there. My reasoning on that starts way back when, rather than take a Patrick Mahomes, I'm even forgetting my coach's name because it's freaking me out to think about it. He held out off of getting Patrick Mahomes because he wanted Kirk Cousins. That's who he was holding out for.
We're talking about Patrick Mahomes before he was drafted.
Right.
You're saying the Niners had a chance to draft Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
But decided to go the free agent route.
Right.
Okay.
And let's take it even back to Kaepernick, because one thing we're going to talk about is the advent of the mobile quarterback.
Okay.
Well, you had the prototype there, okay? And I remember not being confused as to why Kaepernick was leaving, why you would let him go, and then keep C.J. Beathard, who I thought basically was more of the same type of guy. Athletic, had an arm, maybe not the best passer or whatever, which is why Kaepernick was even better than him. But if you were to run that type of offense, you could run it with C.J. Beathard. I did it in the virtual world, and I saw that, okay? So I'm like, you let Kaepernick go, but then you keep C.J. Beathard. But what you really wanted, really wanted the same type of quarterback he had in Atlanta, that pocket guy, that field general, and
Right.
that's what he thought Kirk Cousins was going to be. So
That's right. I agree with you.
so
100%.
relative to being ahead of the curve on the mobile quarterback thing, he's still more old school relative to that. So the second thing is, I thought that in the critical times, he didn't give the Niners a chance to really improvise and do some of the little tactical things like the Chiefs did, like the hurry up. You know, when people look at the end of that first half, when we got that ball, okay, and he ran a running play, okay. Well, first off, before they got the ball back, he had the opportunity to stop the clock, like on fourth down, and he didn't. So he signaled there that he wasn't really serious about going down and getting another score.
They had all three timeouts. They had all three
timeouts.
End of the half, yes.
So, I mean, dude, you stop the clock, you get the ball back, you got 2 timeouts. Even if you run the ball and kill the clock and get a field goal, you get the ball right back. So I'm like, that's every Madden guy's dream. You know what I mean? To have that situation. And then your first running play is a run play. And I remember saying to you, because I do it in Madden all the time, the good thing about that is everybody's still close to the line of scrimmage. You can hurry back to the line of scrimmage, even if you're not going to do anything but kill the clock. But they meandered back to the line of scrimmage. Again, signaling we're not really trying to go score. But you run back to the line of scrimmage because if somebody is out of formation, off balance, something like that, you take advantage of that. You could have ran a second run play. Your run game was getting you 6+ yards a pop, like with those flanker sweeps and stuff. Dude, you could be down in field goal range and you got 2 timeouts. You know, you can throw in a short pass to Kittle. You can do the things, but that's when the creativity was supposed to happen. They didn't do it. They get a ball back to the Chiefs. The Chiefs do all of that. They go into the hurry up. The other thing is that I've always said, and you probably heard me say this, what hurts you during the regular season kills you in the postseason. One of the things that hurt us in the regular season was our inability to play 11-on-11 defense when there was a mobile quarterback. When they start running the options and they put you in a situation where if you're not going to play 11-on-11, then this guy's going to take advantage of you, you know? And in a Patrick Mahomes situation, too many times when there was third downs and crucial downs and even up on the goal line, you got to play 11-on-11. They go into option. We don't have an option mode. That wasn't something that's built into this offense, you know? So we don't really have that. So the creativity that you show, whatever you run, you know, with the way they run their game in San Fran, you know, you still have to use those tactics. But one of the things that the defense knows is that for the most part, you're not running Garoppolo. You know what I mean? He's not going to fake the handoff and run around and like Mahomes do. We pretty much know that.
Yeah, but that's not an excuse for them not to be prepared. They're not playing themselves. They're playing the Chiefs.
Oh, right. But I'm just talking about a defense, any defense having to deal with 11-on-10 versus an 11-on-11. You know what I mean? So our defense is in a division where at least 2 of the teams are going to make you play 11-on-11. So you should be better at it than what they were. I actually thought that they would play better because of their experiences, even with Lamar Jackson, you know? Yep. But yet he's still running around free. Bosa's still running past him and then going to try to come back. You can't do that with when you're playing that type of, you know, even your boy LT said, you know, you got to contain them first. you know? So, you know, they failed to do that way too many of the times. And then in third downs, you know, the Chiefs are going for it on fourth. They're not looking to be that aggressive. So, you know, I do think we did get out coached on a number of different levels. We still could have won that game with what we had if we simply make a few more plays. But your statistics on turnovers last week, and I remember saying to you, that's a scary statistic.
Yep. Yep.
So mention that again and how, you know, what happened.
Well, it was first of all, it was far closer than most people suspected, but because we do the net point power rankings and we stay on top of those things from week to week to week, we could actually see those numbers. And then I delved a little bit deeper to get actual numbers, this many sacks, this many interceptions, this many fumble recoveries, to find out that it was super, super close. And people were kind of poo-pooing the Chiefs defense as far as those particular statistics were concerned, and giving heaps and heaps of credit to the Niners for being the far superior defense, when in fact, statistically, they were not. It's pretty much that simple. And I don't know if the Niners read their own headlines. I would think that a team would know better than that. I would think that a coaching staff would know better than to let a team going into a Super Bowl with 2 weeks to prepare to think that their newspaper clippings are all true. But they kind of played that way. There's no way with 2 weeks to prepare for a Super Bowl and you're playing a mobile quarterback that you're not prepared for some sort of an option that has a part of it is him running. Especially, like you said, when you play Russell Wilson twice a year and you've played Lamar Jackson. There's no excuse for that. None at all.
That falls back to Salah, you know, and also what happens as a result of dealing with these mobile quarterbacks, especially, and I saw it in this game, it tires out your defense. I remember, I can go back to Fran Tarkenton, and when you hear the defenders against the Vikings who had to play against Fran Tarkenton talk about how dog tired they were, because he was scrambling left and then he scrambled right and then he scrambled left again. And if you weren't 8 deep in defensive linemen, these guys' tongues were dragging by the end of the game. And I heard our coach say that fatigue was calculated into some of his decisions. He saw, fatigue out there on the field. He talked about a tired defense, especially once they started getting hit deep, and after the Chiefs went into like a little quick hurry up thing, a little quick no huddle and all of that.
Right.
We could have been doing the same thing. The Niners could have been doing, and that's what I'm talking about. And beginning at what you run when you get that ball in the second half. Even if you run up to the line of scrimmage and call fake signal, try to make them come off sides, you got to continue to attack at least their head. You know what I mean? And I didn't see that. So on that bottom line, I do think we did get our coach. In terms of Garoppolo, if Garoppolo is your version of Kirk Cousins, then okay, you can win with Garoppolo, but he will have to improve, and you will, as an offense, have to be able to handle blitzes better than what you handled them in this particular game, especially in the crucial moments. Okay. He had his, remember we talked about it, his Joe Montana opportunity,
Yeah, at the end of the game, close to the end of the game, he had that opportunity. He could have given them.
And I thought our defense kind of did what I was hoping that they do relative to, if well, okay. I expected that they would give up yards. What I hoped is that they would hold them to field goals in most of the cases, especially because we had done so well in the red zone. But it was in the red zone where the Chiefs began to employ that option. And now people, they're running around. I'm seeing guys pushing guys. You go over there. I got over here. And the next thing I know, they're outflanked. They were constantly outflanked. And so, that's that option. That's that 11 on 11 that you have to have when he runs out there. There's two guys out there. Somebody got to have him and somebody got to have him, at least. And so moving forward, that's something that we're going to have to look at across the league with all defenses. Do they have the ability to play 11 on 11, when you have these option mobile quarterbacks? And it looks as if we're going to have more and more of
them. Similar to what I'm talking about when I talk about the preparation for the game on the defensive side for the 49ers and being prepared for that option. On the offensive side, also on the defensive side of for the 49ers, they did have one weakness. It was not a glaring weakness, but I think I mentioned it. I probably just mentioned it in passing because they were so good defensively and they were able to win games, and their defense was most of the time pretty dominant, and they were able to force teams into doing things that they didn't want to do rather than continue to get gashed by what this weakness was. But the one weakness was stopping the run game between the tackles. And the Chiefs, conversely, were prepared. They looked and they studied, and I know they had to look hard because there weren't a lot of weaknesses on this Niners defense. And in fact, if there was one, that was probably the only one, and it wasn't a glaring weakness, but they took advantage of it. Their run game was better than the running team's run game.
It's funny that you say that because on the last touchdown for the Chiefs, that was out of an I formation. They ran it to the weak side. I run that play all the time. It's a stalwart fullback. I formation. Remember I mentioned they do have a fullback. They actually employ. You don't think about that, but that was the thing you have to say about them. They could play multiple styles of offense. You know what I mean? They could go into their power run game, and that was a power run play. You missed that tackle. Once he hits that outside, he's out. Yeah. And they were tired. So now everybody's dragging along.
Again, they got outflanked. Again, they got outflanked.
Play. And that's the beauty of that formation, because what happens is, because you got the tight end on the other side, right? But you have an I formation, they tend to lean toward, that side, they move out. And so all of a sudden you may have a D-tackle on your tackle. The other guy's out there with the wide receiver, but then here comes the fullback leading out. So now your safeties and stuff come up. You got an extra defender because that's a gap. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because your defense is shifted. I love that play. You know what I mean? And I'll look at a defense and go, ooh, they're a little shifted off to that side. And I'll audible into it just because of that. So when I saw that, I was like, ooh. And then again, like you said, they ran the ball well. They ran the ball against the Titans. They shown the ability against the Titans that they could run the clock out running the ball. So you knew that they had that capability. So again, congratulations to the Chiefs. I thought they played a great game. One of the things that I also gave credit to the Chiefs for was that when they got to the goal line, they had plays. Okay. They had plays. And symbolic was the play where they lined everyone up in that little stack and everybody spun around
I loved it.
like they were an old R&B singer at the Uptown.
I loved it.
And then it turned out to be a simple dive play up the middle.
Yep.
And he didn't score. And I mean, initially he got hit. Then he forced his way, all the way to the end zone. So it turned out to be a simple power play. Lots of dressing, all the stuff that Shanahan is given credit for. They were doing that same stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
But they had a quarterback who had one or two more options than what your quarterback has. You know what I mean? So you got to run. If that's what's got you there, that's why I was so surprised that they didn't, in that second half, just continue to run plays, because I felt they could have got within field goal range with pretty much mostly run plays, as long as they could keep outflanking them or stretching them out and hitting them up the middle. But you got to be in a hurry up, and again, it's one thing if you throw a deep pass and half your receivers are 30 yards downfield. Now, if you're trying to, or if they catch it and get, let's say it's 20 yards down, they catch it, they get tackled. You got to run everybody 25 yards down the field and set up if you're going to hurry up. But if you only went 6 yards, you know what I mean? Everybody should be in a hurry up. You should have 2-3 plays called. And at this point, that's when, if he's going to be the field general, he's got to be the field general. You know what I mean? It's not, he shouldn't be sitting on the sideline with, 2-3 plays had to have already been called. So, when it's time to ad lib, you got to have an ad lib game. Chiefs had a better ad lib game.
That goes down to what I said earlier about preparation. If you have to be prepared for every situation, whether it comes up or not. You got to be prepared for it. And you also offensively have to be prepared with plays that you could pull out when you need them. And they didn't seem to have that. The one thing they had was something that they had been doing during the course of the season, which is giving the ball to Debo, running from one side of the field to the other. It worked during the season. It worked in this game. I don't know why the Chiefs had such trouble with it, but it wasn't something that the Niners ran to death during the season, but they did it once or twice per game, almost every single doggone game. If we went back and reviewed every game this season, I would venture to guess that 80% of the games they ran that play at least once in one form or fashion, in maybe a different formation setup. Maybe they started him in motion first. Maybe they had him tight in the slot and he did it, but they ran that play. So for the Chiefs to have so much trouble with it, I know they saw it. I know they had to have some kind of preparation for it. So I would have to give the credit to the Niners offense for just executing it so great. And Kittle was blocking like a beast. And the tight ends block on plays like that is extra important. It's almost as important as the fullback. And they just simply out-executed them on that particular play, regardless of the formation that they ran it out of. But other than that, the Chiefs really didn't really give the Chiefs any real problems, except for the one drive where they ran and passed the ball pretty balanced and they just marched down the field. I think they did it twice where they really just marched down the field. Once they scored a touchdown, once they kicked a field goal, I think that was their first possession in the beginning of the third quarter. They kicked a field goal there. But that was a pretty nice drive. And they had another nice drive where they really just marched down the field. Other than that, it seemed to be a bit of a struggle. And I found myself thinking they should have ran the ball on this play, or they should have thrown the ball on that play, or, let's go back real quick to the drive before halftime. I went back and I looked at the play-by-play and the box score and stuff. It was 59 seconds left in the game after they got the ball.
And that was after they let the clock run on the Chiefs punt down on that first.
Right. So they could have saved some time.
Right.
for a
like
final
20
drive,
seconds at least.
for a final drive to try to get points on the board before the half, on top of knowing that they were going to get the ball in the second half. And I think I said to you while we were watching the game, it seems like they're content to just kind of sit on it because they're not using timeouts and they're not showing any sense of urgency to get the ball down the field to try to get points. So it looks like they're content to just let whatever happens because they know they're going to get the ball back in the second half.
You
But
absolutely did say that. You absolutely did
Yeah.
say that. As a matter of fact, yeah, I think you were a little frustrated, pissed. You was like, they might as well just took 3 knees if they're going to,
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I said something crazy like that. But you know what I meant, like this.
But what you said attitudinally, okay, it made sense. You know
Right.
what I mean? Because your attitude showed no aggression. So you might as well
Exactly.
have took 3 knees and just said, we're
Exactly.
going to make you use your time. They didn't even make them use their timeouts because then they start throwing the ball. And then, okay. And even then they had some level of success. Now, again, the Kittle offensive penalty, okay?
OPI, yes.
I told you when I played the virtual game that at some point in the game, I felt like the game was trying to cheat me. And I have my theory, which is you got to be good enough to beat the cheat. Now, what happened with that particular penalty, there was 2 things. One, the question of whether or not he actually interfered when he did that, when he put his arm out, right? And the question was, if you compared that to the the guy from the Vikings, Rudolph.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, where he obviously was in the end zone, did the exact same thing. But then the second part of that was that in each one of those plays, the defender is clawing at them while the ball's in the air. And I'm wondering why nobody's calling defensive pass interference. Because, do you have to like push the guy, make a move? Can you just really be grabbing and clawing all on his clothes while the ball's coming down? Which is why on a natural thing, he's going to put his arm out just to kind of get some space. Now, the veterans back in the day used to have much better technique in hitting you with the short hit.
Michael Irvin,
right? He should teach that clinic to these tight ends because he was great at it. Okay, almost like Bruce Lee with the 2-inch punch.
right? Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I understand. Obviously, he put his arm out, but I'm like, there was defensive pass interference on both of those guys, as far as I was concerned, right from the get. That's how you call it. You don't call it different for a tight end, you do for a wide receiver, as far as I'm concerned.
It's crazy. It's crazy. These little gray areas in these rules are funny because you're not supposed to be able, as a defender, you're not supposed to be able to touch. I believe the words in the rule book says touch a receiver once he's beyond 5 yards. Yet we see that quite often.
Constantly.
But it doesn't seem to get called. I think in the referees' minds, there has to be an impeding of a player's progress before they'll actually make a call. So if there's hand fighting, they'll let that go, because if the defender claws at the receiver is also going to try to smack his hands away. That's no call. But if the defender grabs at the receiver's jersey or locks down one of his arms, then it will be called. And the other way, if the receiver is hand fighting, that's no call. But if he straight puts his arm out to create space, then you're going to get the OPI. So they're kind of letting things go on both sides. But if you impede the other player's progress, you're going to get a penalty. Hand fighting does not impede your progress.
Defenders had their backs to the ball.
Well, you got that call. They made that call. They made that call.
No, I'm talking about on Kittle. They did, they called it on Kittle, but the defender who's clawing at him was not even looking back at the ball at all. You know,
Okay.
usually you give them a little bit if there's contact, but at least the defenders turn because he has an opportunity. He has equal access to the ball. It's anybody's ball once it's in the air. So if he even turns like he's looking for the ball, then he'll get the benefit of the doubt in most cases for pass interference. In both of those cases, Rudolph and Kittle, that didn't happen. The guy just simply had it back to the ball. So you're right. There's the rules, and then there's how these rules are being actually called on the field relative to that. But it was big. In most games, there are 2 or 3 winning plays, especially on tight games. You either make the play or you don't make the play. Chiefs got a 3rd and 16. They make the play. They had the other one with they hit deep to Tyreek Hill. They made that play. We have the Kittle catch, did not make that play for whatever reason, refs or not. And then you have your deep pass over the middle, which I'm like, okay, is this what they called out? Because as far as I'm concerned, what you wanted there was a first down. I think a first down was more valuable. Well, let's put it this way. It should have been at least a higher probable than that particular play, although that play would have been a beautiful dagger. It would have been a beautiful thing had he hit it. And, you got to give him kind of credit for going for it. But to me, at this point, you're playing the game on 2 levels. You're playing the time game and the possession game, to get what you need to get done. And, when you throw that ball out there, that's a lower probability. I mean, they have those statistics that say, this has a probability of, versus that. And I think that's a low probability. So that was my only problem with that.
I think they called that play because they thought they saw something. They thought they had something. And in fact, they did. And he just overthrew it.
It's hard to play. It's a hard play.
Hindsight says,
it's the reason why when they make the play, everybody gets so excited because it's a low probability throw, So that's why everybody.
It's also called it's also can be considered a great call. Oh, great call.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, you're right. When they complete it, it's like, oh, it's so great.
Right.
So they overcame that probability,
Right.
But
so hindsight says, well, they probably had enough time to continue to drive, and they should have focused on getting the first down and continuing to drive. But I feel like, and I don't remember exactly how much time was left at that moment, but I know it was getting late, and I know they were feeling some desperation, and those things come into play.
Yeah, and I'll say the same thing that I said about the run play. You make your first down, you only need 10 yards. It's easy to hurry up at that point because you only got to move everybody up 10 yards. You know what I mean?
Well, when you
come back, you can stay in a hurry up.
When you talk about the hurry up, first of all, I know you love the hurry up. And you don't have to have a mobile quarterback to run the hurry up because Tom Brady does it all the time.
Absolutely.
You've made that very clear. Okay, but you're kind of talking about a bit of a coaching philosophy that Kyle Shanahan obviously just does not have.
I'm simply pointing it out.
So, if they could have brought all the TV cameras and the crowd down there and let you play the Super Bowl on Madden, then we would have seen that and we would be saying, hey, y'all great. But unfortunately, Kyle Shanahan's job was to do that, and he didn't get it done.
The funny thing about Madden is that when you're playing and you have people watching the game, like sitting there with you,
okay,
they see so much that you don't see.
Yeah, it's always like that.
It's crazy.
It's always like that.
You know what I mean? You can see probably, even as the coach on the sideline when you're coaching out there, and you're looking and you're like, he got 3 guys open. You didn't see him? But
Yeah, somebody will always walk up to me and go, you know, so-and-so had the out over there on the opposite side of the field. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah. hey, it's too late now. But
that's why you can run the same play,
yes,
especially out of different formations, because
yes,
on any passing play, you could easily have four, at least 3 to 4 good passing options.
yes.
You know, even if these two guys is squaring it in, and that guy's going post, you got 3. You're gonna be the short end, the deep end, or overside, and you can run the same play because if they line up different, then he becomes the primary or he becomes the primary.
True.
And so you basically can, and that's the beauty of the hurry up, is that it's about knowing a few plays that you can beat somebody up with. And that flanker, that end around that you're talking about, and you're saying you don't know why. Let me tell you, what I see that is actually an option play. When you bring that guy in motion and he's coming across, first of all, you now read the defense because they're either in the zone or in the man. They're going to decide. You see the alignment of that outside guy and the corner out there. If the corner is wide out and he's playing back, you got a big A space right there. If they shift over, then you got the option to hand it to the dive man and hit right up in that gap. So it's a play that exposes the defense, and you have at least 2 handoff options on that play. It's a beautiful thing. The way I run it that's different is I make Kittle my slot man, and I put the other tight end, and I'm in a single back situation. So I'll put even Juszczyk or any of those in at the other tight end situation. So now you're actually running a power play, and you're giving it to Kittle on a run. I really don't think they took full. I understand Kittle is great as a blocker, but you can run 2 tight ends because you have Kittle. Kittle is a wideout, and you got to understand that where you put him, you dictate to the defense. They'll double Kittle. So you put Kittle in the slot, you automatically force their alignment, But if you got them lined up to block all the time, and I understand there's a running play, but you can be a running play with him in that situation because you can motion him to the side. Now it's a real strong side because you got 2 tight ends over there now, So it's a lot of things you can do with them that I don't think they're doing.
Well, I think when we're talking about that particular play, it makes more sense to them to use Deebo Samuel because although they executed the play extremely well every time, pretty much every time they did it.
It's still a good play, Deebo Samuel's or Kittle.
But you have an advantage using Samuel because of his speed and shiftiness that Kittle doesn't have. If you run Kittle, it's basically a power play, and you have to decide, is he going to cut it up or is he going to take it wide? Deebo has more speed to get it successfully out wide, and he also has faster and quicker feet if he needs to cut it inside. And he has a real good feel for it, which is why it's such a great play for them when they use him.
You're absolutely right. And, there's always the pro and the con of it.
And also,
you're absolutely right.
Also, during the season, they ran it a lot with him coming in motion, but in the Super Bowl, they didn't. They went set, looked at the defense right away. Oh, yeah, we're good. And then all he had to do was decide, was he going to cut it up or was he going to take it wide? They just lined him up tight, and he came on the snap of the ball, and they just blew him off the line, created holes. Even the one where he had it in his mind he was going to take it out wide, and they were ready for that one. And there was this humongous hole, and he was able to cut back and still get really good yardage on that play. So it's just a shame that that was the most successful play that they really had in their arsenal. It's kind of crazy. Raheem Mostert, coming off of that 200 plus something game on the ground, 200 yards on the ground, that's phenomenal. Okay. Nobody expected him to do that again, but the man's got to get more than 12 carries. They're a running team. And your star running back got 12 carries. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. They shot themselves in the foot on that one. And we both have said we thought they should have run the ball more, especially in particular situations when they could have sustained drives if they just ground it out. And they didn't. But your number one back getting 12 carries, that's not, you can't
Well,
go.
this is the thing, and you've heard me talk about this before. I talk about having a power game. Sometimes I call it bully ball, because up front is where the bullying actually happens.
That's their strength.
Well, you pointed out that defensively the Chiefs actually were better. And so when you added Frank Clark in the middle, when you added Suggs on that D line, you actually put together a pretty nice line, okay? And so, where it maybe the question is, okay, it's our strength, but is it stronger than their strength? When it come time to run that bully ball thing, are you confident that you can bully them? And that's what you didn't see, especially at the end of the first half.
Confidence in something that you've been doing all year, and you lose confidence to do it in the Super Bowl, then yeah, Kyle Shanahan, you got out coached. That's ridiculous. I don't care if they brought Reggie White back for that game. I don't care. This is what we do, and we're going to impose our will on you until you prove that you can stop it. Tevin Coleman had a couple good runs early and never saw the field again.
You said
Reed is sitting on the sideline clapping his hands and patting people on the back. What happened to that three-headed monster? You're right. Okay, I'll come back. I'll say it. Yes, Kyle Shanahan got out coached. Not just in game situation, should have did this, should have did that, didn't do this, didn't do that. They weren't prepared. I don't think they were prepared and still had an opportunity to win the game.
All right. I'm done beating up on the Super Bowl at this particular point.